visiting a place where they have big mountains. And mountain climbers like to climb big mountains, but they have to be careful because they can be caught in an avalanche and then they're finished. This is I learned. What they do, when avalanches happen, this is education, avalanche prevention. Lots of snow on a mountain, packed. Some light snow falls on top of the packed snow, and then way up towards the top, a little bit of snow falls, down, and as a little bit of snow falls down, then the light snow on top of the packed snow starts to accumulate and become bigger and bigger, and you can't stop it, it's an avalanche. So mountain climbers, I learned, they have a system, they have a little pellet gun, and they fire the pellet gun towards the top of the mountain to agitate some of the light snow at the top of the mountain. And if that agitated snow doesn't cause an avalanche, then they're safe to the mountain climbing. And people that don't know that may get caught in avalanche. And once it comes, you can't get out of the way. You're buried in snow and someone has to come and rescue you later. So negative emotions are also compared to avalanche effect. And it's right from Bhagavad Gita. And there's a sequence, it's the mind. And the mind has a thought about something. Out there, there's something. And I have a thought about that something. And from that thought comes an emotion connected to the object out there. And then there may develop further than not just an emotion, but some obsession. I gotta get one of those, or I gotta get away from one of those, or something. And when that obsession is frustrated, then we can have some destructive actions, like, I gotta get out of here, or I gotta jump out the window because whatever it is happened, and that's the avalanche effect, snowball effect. So one of the recommendations, we already saw it, and just repeating something you already saw, it's important to make a differentiation between the mind and what's going on in the mind, and the observer of the mind and what's going on in the mind. Again, it's self-realization, but it's stepping back and being detached from that thing that's very dear and near to us is the mind, but we're not the mind. And if we're not the mind, then who are we? We're the observer of the mind. And the process of yoga helps us, once we have that disconnect with, that's not me, there's a way to, it's called intelligence. Buddhi, for those of you that like Sanskrit, I like Sanskrit. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mahopiyantite. The intelligence can direct the mind. I don't know if you've had the experience, I'm kind of a visual person. Sometimes you're in a place where there's a water spill, in the kitchen maybe, or in the laundry room, and there goes this big flow of water in a certain direction. One of the things you can do, I've done it, you make a line that's, instead of going to where you don't want it to go, a line it can go, because the flow is continuing, that's the mind, the motion of the mind, just give it a different direction to move in. Make a little line or a few lines and move it, and then it'll start to flow over there instead of over there. So strong emotion isn't necessarily bad, just where's it going can be bad. You can redirect it. It's possible. Now it's not easy, but by training and by discipline and by inner strength, then it's possible to redirect the mind. Then here's a nice Bhagavad Gita verse. Here we go. The senses are so strong and impetuous, Krishna speaking to Arjuna, his friend, that they, that's the senses, forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination. They have intelligence as a discriminating function. You know, this is this and that's that, and this is not that, because I have this power of discerning one thing from another thing. That's the intelligence. And even a person who has intelligence, sometimes the senses can just take over. Like that description I gave you of the claustrophobia experience in a high school kid from something that I didn't have control over. So it's possible that the senses, it's part of life, the senses control the mind and even the discerning faculty. So therefore, according to Bhagavad Gita, what's needed is purity. What does purity mean? A high school graphic kid helped me with this. And not the music, but the graphic design. There's a series of 3 doors: body, mind, and heart. And then keep going and you get to who you really are, or the place where you really belong, that place of contentment. So that's what this graphic is meant to show, and I hope it works, because sometimes it doesn't work. The first set of doors, that's the body, physical body, and that's the asanas and the yoga practice that you were doing when I walked in. And then there's our dear friend, the mind. And then more subtle and something that can direct the mind is the heart. And go through that set of doors. This is yoga. You get to the place where there's awareness of the self within, and there's contentment in that space or place of knowing who you are. Even while you're in the world, moving around in the world, you don't have to just be sitting in a meditative pose. As your life moves in the direction, as a yogi will move in the direction of finding happiness within, your life becomes like that. And then things that are going on the mind, the body, the mind, and the heart level, you can deal with them better if you're in this place of higher consciousness or a meditative state of how you live your life. Nice? It's nice. It's nice. And that's one of the best ways to get there is through sound or mantra meditation. Now, probably everybody here knows what the meaning mantra is, but I'll say it anyways because it's nice to hear things again. Man is a Sanskrit syllable that indicates the mind, man. Tra is a Sanskrit syllable that means deliver. Expanded, it's triate, or what can be delivered from or released from the turbulence of the mind through sound. That's mantra. And it takes you to a good place. It takes you to the place of who you really are, as opposed to the turbulence place, which is not who you are. That's what mantra does. It's a spiritual sound. Genuine mantra is a spiritual sound that takes you to your spiritual self. Now, I've been speaking too much, but I'm going to tell a nice story anyways, because it helps make the point. Tuning forks. Once upon a time, I was a kid, and I had 3 sisters. 2 of my 3 sisters, they liked playing piano. Mom and Dad got them a piano. And every few years, 2-3 years, a piano tuner would come to the home. I was a little kid and I was curious, so I knew he was coming, and he came in the door, and he was carrying something that looked like a guitar case. And when he opened it up, sure enough, it wasn't a guitar case. It was a case in which there were 2 things: tuning forks and a rubber mallet that he would hit on the tuning fork, place the tuning fork near the C chord, the D sharp, or F, and he didn't touch the tuning fork to the piano chord, he just held it near. The one on this side, the one on that, none of the other piano chords moved, or chords moved, except that one. And then it would vibrate, because frequency, sound causes frequency, vibrations. And so that piano chord moved. And maybe you've seen pictures when it's tuned in different patterns, it goes out and out and out. If it's out of tune, then he would know how to tighten it or loosen it just by looking at the piano chord. The reason for giving this explanation is the mantra works the same way. That C tuning fork only vibrates the C piano chord. Similarly, mantra vibrates what's already there inside, that is something spiritual, vibrates and resonates with something spiritual. Using the tuning fork example, it's already there. It just needs a sound and a certain, in this case, a frequency of a musical note, but a frequency of who we are. That's what mantra is. And it's very effective. I'll vouch for it, it's very effective. And it does two things. Mantra cleanses and awakens. Cleanses coverings, stuff that doesn't, stuff that it's not who I am and doesn't belong there. It's a good cleansing agent. And it awakens who we really are. Just by sound. Elevation of consciousness through sacred sound meditation. And then you get in touch with who you really are instead of being forgetful of who you are and identifying with who you aren't. That's yoga. That's in this yoga asana. Yoga studios all over the world teach asanas, but there's a direction. There's a destination that it's meant to take you to. It's meant to take you to a place of higher consciousness. It's not just don't let us stay at the physical, or the physical and the mind through pranayama. Then you'll feel peaceful when the airs within the body are in proper balance, and you're disturbed when they're out of balance. So bring your bodily airs in balance, bring your body in balance, and hit that tuning fork. That's who you really are, that same frequency. And it's a state of being. It's not just something you think about. Almost done, I promise you. Here's a little chart showing, this is from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, but Vedic sounds have a frequency where they hit the ear. It not only goes to the ear, it goes to the heart. Not only goes to the heart, it goes to the soul within the heart. And awakens our spiritual consciousness. This is a diagram of a gentleman named Hans Jenny, a medical doctor and a technician, and he wanted to see what's a two-dimensional depiction of sound. So he did some experiments. He made what's called the tonoscope. That was his name. And it had three parts. A thing that generated sound, a tube or a channel that directed the sound to a third thing, which was a vibrating surface, sometimes a membrane, sometimes a plate, sometimes he tried different things, and powder. And just random put powder on the plate and then directed sound. And then two things, for example, every musical note has a different geometric pattern, two-dimensional. Sound has form. Second, he tried directing the sound Om from that instrument that generated sound, and the picture that you see on the right is what he took a picture of. It's called a Shri Yantra. Those of you from India, you know what a Shri Yantra. Yantra means machine, and it's a two-dimensional depiction of the spiritual world. Om has form, and the two-dimensional depiction of that form is the spiritual world, or Vaikuntha realm, Shri Yantra, just by Om, just by sound. There it is, nice diagram. Here it is, a photograph of what he took a picture of when he was doing this little experiment. And notice it's geometric and everything, but it's a Sri yantra. So they have this phrase, feel the vibration. And that's it. It's something you can feel. You can cognize. With your brain, you can, feel the brain. You can feel at your heart, and you can feel at the soul level through sound vibration. That's a spiritual sound vibration, such as a mantra. And one of the mantras that's recommended in the Upanishads is this one. We didn't just pull it out of the air. It's specifically recommended for this particular yuga or age of mankind. And I'll stop. There's a couple more things, but I'll stop. Oh, let's say one more thing. Here's a gentleman that did, a neurologist that studied the effects of Sanskrit in general. I'm standing in the way. Sanskrit in general has effect on your mind. And one of the effects on your mind is your memory increases. No. Yes. And there's different frequencies that as one becomes proficient in Sanskrit chanting, the vibrational frequency of the mind becomes a meditative one. Meditative frequency means there's more insight into who you really are, just by Sanskrit. So I've been making reference to Bhagavad Gita. It's originally in Sanskrit. It's now translated word for word and then into English. It's a nice book. But just by reciting it, not only Bhagavad Gita, other forms of Sanskrit texts, it's very calming, soothing, and you'll do better in your exams. You'll have better memory at least. Okay, there we go. So let's see if there's some discussion.